Roll Tide, everybody, and welcome to Cover Crimson. It is a wrap on SEC Media Days, brought to you by Pearl River Resort over there in Philadelphia, Mississippi. The Azaleas, the Oaks, two amazing golf courses, part of Dancing Rabbit. Today, we had powerhouses to wrap up the Media Days: Missouri, Kentucky, Arkansas, and Texas A&M. They really backloaded this thing, so we'll talk about that and more right here on the show. Hey, like, subscribe, thumbs up, Roll Tide, get in that comment section, and let's get into this. Nick Saban's coming out of retirement, right? All right, Roll Tide, everybody. Good to see all of you guys in the comment section. Love it when we're on here live. See you in there, Stacy. Good to see you, brother. Roll Tide, Zach and Ricky and Michael and everybody else that's hanging out with us. SEC Media Days have officially come to an end. I guess there's a lot to kind of get into from my vantage point. First off, it was definitely a less than stellar schedule today, right? I think Missouri, I have respect for their football team, but, not a lot of interest there. Kentucky, if it was basketball, you'd get a big crowd. Arkansas has kind of become, also rans. And then Texas A&M's trying to buy themselves into the conversation. But the world revolves around Texas in the state of Texas. They're kind of like the Longhorn State's version of Auburn.
Yeah, today wasn't overly interesting, to be honest with you. Mike Elko is a good coach. I think Texas A&M is a good program, but as far as fun and generating a lot of interest, Eli Drinkwitz there for Missouri. He's a fun guy. This definitely, I completely agree, Michael. He did say some wild stuff, and I wouldn't say that's surprising, but today was kind of the boring day, unfortunately. Now, granted, there wasn't like a whole lot to come out of SEC Media Days from like a national perspective. I thought there would be a little bit more, but still, we're only 2 weeks away from fall camp. That's what I think the focus needs to start being on. We'll talk a little SEC Media Days, and obviously Kristen Saban had to take to Instagram to kind of set the record straight with the rumors about Nick Saban coming out of retirement potentially. So we'll discuss that. But as far as SEC Media Days, there just wasn't a whole lot of headlines that's worth talking about or really getting into, at least for an Alabama audience.
Yeah, I felt like that too. I wonder how they pick the teams, wouldn't you want like a Bama, Texas, a Georgia, somebody that's going to draw headlines to kind of be like like a Thursday type deal? Or is it, and we've been to these things before, everybody leaves after Wednesday, right? The place empties out. You're there and everybody's like, I'm going to be here till Wednesday and then I'm out of here, and that kind of felt like they were like, well, everybody's going to be gone anyway. So let's go ahead and pile those guys up. And, they can't complain too much because we didn't put Mississippi State on this day. But, at the same time, like interest-wise, they definitely bored us today.
Yeah, I don't know how they did the schedule. I know that Alabama has always seemingly gone, at least from what I can remember, day 3 typically. Yeah. Maybe at one point it was day 2, but I've never seen them on day 1. Never seen them on day 4. So, and used to, it was 3 per day.
Yeah.
So now it's 4. So the fact that you get more, but Arkansas is projected down there near the bottom. Kentucky's projected near the bottom. Missouri is probably 10, 11-ish, if I had to guess. And then you've got Texas A&M, who's not like one of those heavy hitters. It's not a Texas or an Alabama or a Georgia. But it's also, they're respectable. So you had to have somebody that was interesting today. Otherwise, it probably would have been even worse. But a lot of people by this point, they are kind of, I wouldn't say they're over SEC Media Days, but it's definitely lost its the excitement isn't quite what it was on days 1 and 2. So for us, day 3 was solid. But man, I'm telling you, once again, we are less than 2 weeks away from fall camp getting underway. There's going to be so many storylines, Mick, worth talking about, position battles, everything that's going on with Florida State and kind of the trash talk back and forth. That's added an interesting wrinkle. Yesterday, Kalen DeBoer was asked about, did he feel like 2024 lived up to the Alabama standard? And he was like, no, it didn't. So just kind of seeing them try to right the ship and get back on track. It's going to be a lot of fun watching, and it's going to be every bit as much fun covering for sure.
Yeah, look, I thought yesterday was great. I mean, obviously, because of our interest in Alabama. And I'm excited to see this Ryan Grubb offense. One thing we didn't talk about yesterday, at least I don't remember, was DeBoer was asked about Nick Sheridan and Ryan Grubb's relationship, and he was pretty adamant about how they get along really well. I think that kind of thing starts with your head coach. And we haven't always had a coaching staff that got along. I mean, I can remember off the record stories of crazy fights and stuff that coaches had on Nick Saban's staff, like some crazy stuff. Like you're like, these guys got into a fist fight, you know what I'm talking about. And it's like, well, I mean, like, hey, this feels like that everybody kind of takes Kalen DeBoer's lead on, there's enough coaching, there's enough positivity, there's enough leash that you guys can all do your thing as long as we're pulling in the same direction. And we needed a change. I mean, look, we did. I mean, the offense last year, there were times when it felt like they couldn't get out of their own way. There was other times where they looked really good. So hopefully, having Grubb back, but then having Sheridan with the time that he spent at Alabama as a coach is going to help both of those guys, right? And so I'm expecting a dynamic offense. And then I love that Paul Feinbaum says Bama's going to be better because Ty Simpson, he just feels like Ty Simpson is amazing as Jalen Milroe was at times. The consistency wasn't there. And I think he feels like, and I feel the same way, that Ty Simpson's one of the things I'm really looking forward to with him is consistency. So I think all that tied together, you feel pretty excited about the Bama offense.
Yeah, the offense, everybody was expecting one thing in year 1 under Kalen DeBoer, and they got something completely different. I mean, the lack of consistency, there was no smoothness to it. Like you even like game plans against like LSU that were super effective, using Jalen Milroe's legs, allowing him to be kind of a dynamic runner, that certainly played a massive part in them getting that win in the fashion in which they did. Not a whole lot needed to be done through the air. The game plan was effective on both sides of the football, but it was like just even that, you watch certain offenses where just everything seems everything's clicking on all cylinders, and it's almost like Jalen Milroe was clicking for sure. I'm not saying other guys around him were not performing well against LSU, but it just seems like that style, you don't get to see everything operate as like a well-oiled machine. So I'm looking forward to that element of it. Talking about Kalen DeBoer and just how he operates as a coach, one of the things about the Nick Saban rumors that I thought was fascinating were the people who were saying, hey, Kane Womack has a good year in 2025. He moves on. Nick Saban comes back as Alabama's defensive coordinator. That was never going to work. I mean, when you've got a guy who did it for so long, I don't think he comes back to be under someone else after he called the shots for almost 2 decades. Secondly, the pressure that would put on Kalen DeBoer would not be fair to Kalen DeBoer. I understand he seems to handle pressure pretty well, like him being willing to come to Alabama. But what I will say, the one element of this that I thought, okay, this is where it would work, even though there's so much that would still point to it not working, was how Kalen DeBoer allows his coordinators to operate. Kane Womack is essentially the head coach of the defense. Kalen DeBoer doesn't really tell him anything. They go over things together. They talk ball. They try to figure some stuff out. They have a brain trust to help each other, both the offense and the defense. But as far as calling the shots and everything else, that is purely Kane Womack. And so if Nick Saban were to have done that, then, you know, he would have been the head coach of the defense and all that. But it was just never going to happen. So we're kind of going down a rabbit hole we don't need to. But, you know, Alabama, we thought the defense was going to take a little bit more time as far as transition post Nick Saban. Seems like the offense was more inconsistent. There was some inconsistency on defense, but over the course of last season, they really started to figure some things out, and they were playing much better. The offense never got to that point. In fact, I would say as the season wore on, the inconsistency, they got worse. So I think that I do think that that's going to end up playing a part as far as Alabama being more consistent in 2025.
Guys, we're brought to you by our friends at Ocean City. That's it right there. Residence Inn by Marriott, back-to-back Coastal Style Hotel of the Year. Our buddy Keith is there. Big Bama guy. Wants you to come out there and roll tide at Residence Inn by Marriott in Ocean City, Maryland. By the boardwalk, by Secrets, by all those great seafood places, awesome sunsets, so many things going on there. The guys from the Next Round did their show from out there. They went and spent some time at Residence Inn by Marriott. It really is an awesome place. All right, let's change gears now, Clint, and talk about Kristen Saban. Greg McElroy, who was the guy that said that he knew that the Big Ten was going to add USC and UCLA. He said like 5 months before it happened, was talking to Feinbaum and basically said that he heard from a very reliable source that Nick Saban could possibly be getting back into coaching. Well, Kristen Saban, that's his daughter, was adamant about the fact that he ain't getting back into coaching anymore.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So she posted to her Instagram story. It was Nick Saban doing the walkout with the players before the game. And it said Alabama's walkout. And she I think the caption was, "Damn, I missed this." And for whatever reason, I think some people started to speculate into that a little bit too much, because she had to come out with another post. And the caption said, "Apparently some of y'all feel trolled by my last story of Nick's walkout. He's not coming back to coaching. Hate to break it to you. You had your time." And, I think that last line was essentially, now he's my dad. And so you guys got to have him for all those years and win all those games and national championships. And now I get to have my dad full time, pretty much full time. So, I don't think she meant anything, malicious by it or was, I just think that was a fun way of letting everybody know he's not coming back to coaching, which we already knew.
Right.
We played into it. We've actually had this conversation. I think this is the third time where we've at least discussed it. It's a major talking point. That's kind of why a lot of people thought Greg did it in the first place. I think it was more harmless. He had probably talked to somebody they trust who said, "I just don't think Nick Saban is done coaching." And so he just decided to take that information. He knows Paul Feinbaum runs in similar circles as far as the information that he gets. So he's like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And then it sparked something that I don't think Greg intended, even though a lot of people will say you fully knew what you were doing. I think he was looking for a storyline. He was looking for a talking point. I just don't think he thought everybody was going to run with it to that extent where it's like because then it became him asking, based off of a source saying, "I don't think he's done with coaching." And they take that and they say, Nick Saban might be coming back to coaching. And then that becomes the storyline. And it's like, it's a little, you're saying the same thing, but when you say it the other way, it doesn't quite sound as definitive. So, we spent a lot of time on it, but we did want to at least address that Kristen Saban has straight up said, the man is not coming back. He is hung it up and it is going to stay hung up. So
who do you believe more, Greg's source or Kristen Saban?
I mean, do I even need to answer that question? And I can
Look,
if you
she
want me
didn't know
to.
he was going to retire, though. She said she didn't. I saw her on LT interviewed her, and she was like, "Well, we didn't really know, and until that day. I mean,
They
and
knew
Greg
that it
knew
was
that the
coming.
SC, Greg knew that the Big Ten was going to have USC and UCLA 5 months early. So, I mean, is he 5 months ahead of this right here?
I mean, wouldn't that be funny if he hadn't caught that itch yet, but he does end up catching
God,
it?
wouldn't
And
that be so funny?
yeah, that would be quite funny.
Hey, you
But
could say I told y'all.
yeah. Even though like there was no right now, if you were to ask Nick Saban, it's like zero plans. But maybe in 6 months, watches another season, he's like, man, I just really want to get back into it. But yeah,
He watches Clint. He watches Sark call those plays at the end of the Ohio State game again, where he blows it with his play calling. He's like, I could have done this. I mean, we'd won.
It's just once again, man. It's like it's such a grind, and that's why. I mean, just granted, I mean he didn't do SEC Media Days this year. He was a part of it. I mean, if definitely the first 3 days, if not the entire week last year. The NFL draft he cut back in year 2 compared to year 1. So I mean he's still doing some of these things. And he's still going to be on game day each and every week. But I mean the grind that he was doing, even with that, it's like Lee Corso, him doing the game day thing is like the extent. And not Nick Saban's not even close to Lee Corso's age, but I'm saying
Right.
the further you get up there, the less you can do. And I just think that he's trying to pull back and get a little bit more free time, but he wants to stay involved. So, just it was at least worth talking about.
Do you think that like when Greg said this, he was just kind of like having a conversation? Like sometimes we have in the studio, like when Coker's here, we're talking to Shank, we're talking to Brian, or talking to you. We're just kind of having like it's more of a podcast than it is like an interview. Like we're just like, hey, I heard this.
Yes, that's 100% what I think happened. And once again, I don't think that he didn't think it. Once again, he knew that it was going to be a headline. There's no way you bring up Nick Saban possibly returning in any shape, form, or fashion and it not be a storyline. But the way that people ran with it, and then it became like Greg McElroy's talked to sources who are close to Saban, and if they're coming out saying this has real legs to it, and then everybody starts speculating. I mean, I work for A to Z Sports covering Alabama. I'd done a story initially on the rumor that was started by Greg, but then someone else with A to Z, they came in and did their own story as far as landing spots for Nick Saban and where he could end up. And it's like once that stuff starts happening, people were kind of taking it as the gospel when it was anything but. And so, you can blame Greg because I wouldn't say he was completely naive to what could happen, but I also don't think that he thought it was going to run that far.
It's like anytime Greg's name comes up, it's always like so like, I mean, like the comments are cracking me up right now. He's like, Scott's like, I don't like Greg, and Kyle's like, I like G-Mac, and it's like, I feel like, like, it's just like, that's why he's probably good at this, because you want to be super polarizing. That's how you get clicks. That's how you get people to watch your shit. You go on there and the people that are super polarizing, what's the guy's name that does the Fox News stuff now? Clay Travis. Those kind of guys. Like, hey, man, I love him or hate him, but you either watch him, right? So I think that Greg's got a little bit of that going. I tell you what, I don't ever listen to the show, but I like him as a commentator when he does games on ESPN. I mean, I think he does a really good job there.
I think he's fine there, and he's not Kirk Herbstreit, but I've always respected.
Really good, man.
I've always respected Kirk because of his unbiased, takes. Now, here's the thing, though. I think Ohio State fans really started to hate him because they felt like he was leaning too far to be perceived as someone who was not biased.
Yeah.
To a point where he had to
throw me in there.
To a point where he ends up having to move out of the state of Ohio. Now, Greg is finding himself, and since then, it's almost feel like Kirk has been like wanting to throw Ohio State some bones and show a little fandom and get emotional and stuff to let them know, hey, I'm still one of y'all, because that's got to be tough to have been a part of that program and want to have a closeness with it, and yet they hate your guts. So I don't know if Greg will ever reach that point, but it's kind of felt like with a lot of Alabama fans, he's kind of getting the Kirk Herbstreit treatment, and I just don't think, maybe he reaches a point in his career where he kind of doesn't want to be perceived that way. But it's very clear he does not want to be perceived as being biased. And I mean, I get that. I learned a long time ago that what I wanted to be in this industry was someone that knew what they were talking about, could share realistic takes, talk people off the ledge because of my more optimistic outlook. But I mean, I wanted Alabama fans to know I had their backs. Like, I know where you're coming from. I feel what you feel, with pretty much all of this. And so while I'm going to try to be realistic and stuff, if you come to this channel, you're hearing someone that's feeling what you're feeling. And that's something that I think gets lost on a lot of these people who cover. You can look unbiased and everything, or be unbiased, and that has its own place if you want the absolute realist, complete unbiased takes. But then I think that there's also bias, even though you might not be a fan of a particular team, or maybe it's a smaller program where you don't have a dog in the race a lot. Sometimes the perceived bias becomes like against the SEC or against Alabama. You're just sick of all that stuff. So you have your own biases in your takes too, even though there's no direct connection or reason for you to hate them. So like, that's, we're a couple of the guys and people who are watching us. We're just a couple of you guys that are hanging out, talking a little football, and we love that everybody's a part of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that he got that perception because that's what he was doing, and he doesn't need to do that. Look at Mark Ingram. I mean, he's awesome, right? Hey, but you know what? He might pop up behind you on set when you're, the Alabama coach is there and give you a roll tide, and nobody holds that against him. We're Bama guys. That's where we went to school. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I like Herbstreit. But there was a time when I felt like it was like he's trying too hard not to be an Ohio State quarterback. Hey, man, be proud of that. That's right. Great. Yeah. Like, so that's your school. But when he's doing the games, I think he's fantastic at it.
Oh yeah, there's no one better.
Yeah, but anyway, it's a tough business. Look, man, I've done play-by-play for 20 some years. Like, you're gonna piss people off. You're not even trying. People are gonna love you and hate you, no matter what you do. So it's a tough one. Yeah, Damian Harris. I like Damian Harris. We put that up there. I must say this. I haven't seen a lot of Damian Harris, but what I've seen, I like him, man. I really like him. I love the story about Saban benching him because he didn't come up and talk to him. He tried to kind of slide in on a meeting. Did you see that? And he's like, "Is it from Tennessee game?"
Yes.
Yeah, he's good to me. I think he's really good.
Well, I mean, once again, it just kind of tells you, because Mark Ingram will show the homerism. Like, he'll break things down, but he's going to let you know he's a Bama guy. He kind of Charles Barkley-esque in that sense. Like, you never question if Charles Barkley is an Auburn guy. He loves Auburn. But I also think, he'll tell it like it is when it comes to Auburn, and he'll tell it like it is when it comes to Alabama. If, I'm not saying that nothing he says doesn't come through a biased lens. Maybe he feels a certain way about Bama at times, and it's done through that. But I think for the most part, he's as unbiased as it gets, as far as being such a homer, but also, giving the other program their flowers when things are going well or they're doing something. So I think that's Mark Ingram. And Damian Harris. I know he rubbed some people the wrong way after that Malachi Moore outburst against Vanderbilt. Damian did a video and he was pretty pointed, and that's not how we do things. And he threw some shade at Kalen DeBoer to a point where he posted yesterday of them taking a picture together and used the wrong caption. I don't even remember the saying, but it was not applied correctly. Anyways, yeah. So a lot of media personalities, I should go pull it up, but it was just, I remember thinking that's not correct usage of that phrase. But people go about it different ways, and people have different flavors. Maybe someone doesn't want kind of the fan approach, but I will say there was a reason that when Shannon Terry started On 3 at 24/7, when he started that, they were team sites. That's what they were referred to as. With On 3, they're referred to as fan sites, because there was an understanding of you can cover a team, but you also can show your fandom a little bit. And I think that's where I really started to lean into it, when I went there. to say I don't, openly wear a ton of Bama gear. Every once in a while, you'll see me in something, but I don't normally do that. I've just always getting into this industry. I've always felt a little uncomfortable because that's a real easy way to get, frowned upon. But, when I went and worked there, it was like, hey, you didn't stop being a fan just because you came to work for us. So don't act like you're not a fan, So like that. And I mean, since then, it's like, that's kind of how I've approached my entire career. So people can do what they want to. Hey, we're all out here trying to make it, figure it out however you can. So
I think you got to be yourself, man. I mean, like that.
That's right.
I remember starting out on the on YouTube, when I started working for Bama Insider, and I think Kyle Henderson was like kind of like wanted me to be a little more not as much a fan, and I was like, I'm just gonna do me. And then eventually he's like, hey man, just do you. Like he kind of saw like it works for me, right? Because this is, I mean, what am I gonna like? Hey everybody, today Auburn took the stage. Good for them. Like, no, I want to see you lose all your games, right? Like today is a terrible lineup. I mean, come on, we're a race to the bottom here. But I do like Damian Harris. I do. I like him a lot, man. I think he's figuring out the business. I don't watch him every day. It's not like, but I watch AJ McCarron and his show with Trent Richardson. I've seen Trent on other shows. This is the best that I've seen him, but I think AJ makes the show because he's not afraid to go out there and tell you what he really thinks. And it's tough to do. When you're a celebrity and you're a former player, like to be able to go into it and not hold back, man. I mean, that's what makes it entertaining. I love that. Look, when Ryan Anderson comes in here, he doesn't care. And he's one of my favorite guests. I mean, because he just will tell you what he thinks.
I will say that, AJ McCarron, one thing I will give him full credit for, he is probably the most authentic, like person, former Alabama player, or really just out of everybody that's kind of talking about or discussing Alabama, he's up there. And some of the things that he says might upset some Bama fans, but you can tell he is exactly who he is when he's talking on camera versus what he would be off. Like, there's just no way, like, why would you switch it up? Because he's just very kind of blunt about things. He doesn't sugarcoat it. I've really come to enjoy listening to him when I can, because, I feel like, I think everybody wants real. And so that's at least what we're trying to give here.
We try to give it to them. I'll tell you this, guys. We're brought to you by Pearl River Resort. I want you to look good when you hit the links there, and we can get you there with Throwback Crimson 20, whether you're gearing up for football season or you're ready to hit the Dancing Rabbit Golf Course in Philadelphia, Mississippi, or wherever you like to golf. Check out Rowback.com. They have some really good deals. There's some great styles. And with our promo code Crimson20, you get 20% off each email address that you use it. So take advantage of that. And again, we're brought to you by Pearl River Resort. It's a great place to wear your gear. Is in Philadelphia, Mississippi. 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks before fall camp. I mean, I'm on the phone right now, Clint, getting people signed back up for the Bama Tailgate Show radio show, because you can hear the band practicing. We're so close to football starting.
Yeah, we're going to have all the coverage here. We're going to talk some today. We're not done, so don't go anywhere. But we're going to start doing more and we've talked a lot about these positions. I'm tired of the off season, because I'm tired of talking about what I think it's going to look like, and I want to start reacting, not projecting. I want to react. I want to see stuff. And so hopefully we'll be able to get some of that in the near future. Here in just a couple of weeks, we'll start getting some of that stuff that we can react to, and photo galleries, and I'll be Nancy Drew and everything that I possibly can on those, and bringing all that information here. But, one thing I did want to talk about, and if you got a question, feel free to throw it into the chat, because we, at the end, Mick, when we're live, he tries to grab a couple of them and we'll talk about them. But just a couple of things that were asked to me on Twitter. I posted the video of, like a short of talking about the pass rush yesterday, and a couple of people responded. And so I just wanted to answer their questions here instead of spending a bunch of time doing it over on Twitter. So Jerry Seinfeld. Obviously not that. Anyways, it's a fake name, I guess. But he asked, where does Keely fit into this? Did putting on all that weight limit his ability to be effective in the pass rush? Also, do we think Yandze Pierre, makes an impact? Loved his ability out of high school, although unrefined. So do you have any quick thoughts on those two guys before I hop in?
No, I mean, other than I think these are two crucial guys to Alabama's season. I mean, I really do. You got to win in the trenches, man. I mean, I don't know how many times we've said that, but you look back at all the Bama championship teams, they all won in the trenches. They weren't getting their butts kicked up front anywhere. How many times did they have the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line? How many top round picks came off of that defensive line? Look at them. Some of the teams, you get Jay Coker in here, and he's like, man, we had guys that were first round picks that were on the scout team. So they're really important in the trenches, and you don't have that depth anymore because of the transfer portal. These two guys got to come up big.
Yeah, Keely, to me, he's going to be a part of Alabama's rotation. There's no doubt about it. He's earned it. He has gotten better at the point of attack. He's, the size. I mean, we've talked already about him being the largest bandit on the roster now. Don't know what that means as far as how much he will potentially be playing inside. I don't really think he has too much of an inside skill set. I think he's a lot better equipped to hold up at the point of attack as far as, out there on the edge. But that didn't automatically mean he's going to be to a point where he can't get rolled out of there if he's playing further inside. So I'll just have to see it. He could. But, I think he's going to be a part of the rotation. With Kelby Collins dropping 10 pounds, and now I'm starting to think, okay, he's probably going to be more of a bandit that gets used situationally inside. That's now you got him, you got Jordan Renaud, you got, obviously LT Overton sitting there at the top. So the bandit spot is pretty loaded up. And you can say, okay, you can just go two bandits. Well, that means you're taking Quay Russaw or, Jamarian Latham or Yandze Pierre. You're probably taking one of those guys off the field if you do that, unless you plan to play one bandit inside. Maybe you got LT Overton inside. Maybe you got Keon Keeley on the outside, and then opposite him you have, one of those pass rushers, one of those wolves. That's certainly a possibility. But there's no doubt that both guys are going to be a part of the rotation, and I think they both can add something to this defensive front. I think they both can get after the quarterback. They both kind of had similar questions for different reasons as far as the run game and becoming more complete players. I think they've both been working extremely hard to do that. And one thing I'll say about Yandze Pierre is, how long did it take Chris Braswell to get on the field? And he actually ended up being an absolute ox against the run by the time you saw him. It went from not seeing him for a couple of years, and then him being a part of the rotation, was a part of that big three with Will Anderson and Dallas Turner, but he was certainly that third guy. And then when Will Anderson moved on to the NFL, he steps into a starting role, had a heck of a year, was fantastic, and then ends up getting drafted in the second round. So, Pierre's got a lot of upside, a lot of, very twitchy, explosive, bendy, tons of athleticism. I really want to see, how he continues to develop. But from a run stopping standpoint, that's, I think, the biggest question mark. But there's no doubt that both those two guys are going to be a part of Alabama's rotation. The next question, and this is something that you might have some thoughts on as well, but really, I guess it was more of a comment that I wanted to address. And I don't even know. It's not a name worth saying. But the comment says, that interior defensive line scares me. We should have paid Peter Woods whatever he wanted. I understand they want more athleticism on the defensive line, but particularly in the interior, besides James Smith and Tim Keenan, we are light and unproven. We need a 300-plus pound line game wrecker. So any thoughts on that, Mick?
I would have loved to have had Peter Woods.
Who wouldn't?
Didn't feel like didn't really feel like Bama was in that from the beginning, though. I mean,
I think there was some rumors that they were trying to get him in the transfer portal, or that he was considering getting in the transfer portal. I don't know if there was ever any legs
after
to that.
he was with Clemson.
Yeah. I mean, he is dominant. I mean, he plays all along their defensive front. He is a monster, man. He's going to be a heck of a player for Clemson this year. He's going to be a hell of a player in the NFL, no doubt about it. But what I would say to this is, he mentions James Smith and Tim Keenan, and obviously, James Smith, just under 300 pounds. Tim Keenan is certainly an ox in there. We talk about him a lot, but you talk about 300 plus pounders. Jeremiah Beamon's 300 plus pounds, and we've heard really good things. This is a former top 100 recruit, really top like 80, top 75. So very, highly regarded coming out of high school. You just haven't seen him yet. I mean, he's gotten bigger. He's gotten stronger. I mean, we have seen him. We saw him against Michigan, and the results were good, but you haven't seen him in any sort of consistent kind of full-time rotational role. From everything that we've seen and heard, this guy's ready to take the next step. And so you want 300-pounders that can kind of be game wreckers. I'm not saying he's going to start, but I think one of those game wreckers is going to be James Smith. I certainly think Tim Keenan is a problem, a very, an immovable object. But I think Jeremiah Beaman, providing rotational snaps there on the interior, he is a critical piece to Alabama's success in 25. There's no doubt about it. And for the fans that are wanting more as far as the interior defensive line, that's the guy that you need to be focusing on, because he is going to be a massive, massive part of it. And then you got Edric Hill, who he is undersized still, 280 pounds, 282, I think now, or 284, one of the two. Still considered a little lean for a defensive lineman, but he's going to provide rotational snaps. He's going to cause some havoc. I don't think he's going to be like an elite run stopper or anything like that. But I really like Alabama's defensive line room. And Steve Mbumwa, I think is how you say it. That a physical freak. All he has to do is just get more comfortable playing this sport from the technical side of things. And once he gets comfortable doing that, he is going to become a problem himself. I don't view him as a 3-star. I think he should have been rated higher. I think he's extremely underrated. So I'm not saying he's going to be a part of the rotation necessarily in 2025. I have no idea. But that's one where you start talking, okay, what happens post Tim Keenan, and what happens if James Smith leaves? This is a guy who probably needs a year, not from a physical standpoint, but just a technical standpoint. But he'll be ready to kind of help next year. I think you're probably getting, Edric Hill back. You're getting Jeremiah Beaman back. And they're adding some guys, and I don't know that they won't go in the transfer portal, but I think both in the immediate and for the future, I think Alabama's defensive line room is in much better shape than a lot of people give them credit for.
Yeah, well, I love hearing that, because that's going to be something that is going to be relied on this year if Alabama is going to really contend for a national championship, right? To win the SEC, to win the national championship. Guys, we appreciate all of you for hanging out with us. Brought to you by Pearl River Resort. Getting ready for football season, and I know a lot of you guys think Bama's going to run the table, just like Clint said. The Timeout Sports Lounge in Golden Moon Casino, Vegas-style sportsbook, close to Tuscaloosa, hour and a half. 2 and change from Birmingham, pretty close to where a lot of us live down here in the South. We appreciate them for all that they do to put our show on a daily basis. So whether it's Dancing Rabbit Golf Course, the Azaleas, the Oaks, whether it's Philip M. Steakhouse, whether it's Geyser Falls, the water park, all of that stuff. Thank you so much to them, and you guys need to check it out. A lot of great musical acts as we move through summer. Clint, roll tide, man. Let's do it again tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Like, subscribe, thumbs up, and also check us out on the Cover Crimson podcast network. And you can do that, Apple, Spotify, all those places as well. So if you can't sit here and watch, you can always download. We want you to download the show so that you get them all. Like, keep it where it's automatically downloading. That helps us out a lot. Roll Tide, everybody.